Bush is one of the most unique artists in British musical history. Over the course of 8 albums and 28 years, she has generated a cultural legacy that has truly revolutionised popular music.
What makes her fascinating to her audience is, I think, the fact that she's not necessarily making records for them.
She was a fascinating young woman, and indeed one could say that she was fully hatched. Somehow she hatched and there was an artist.
She's a heroine to female artists and also male artists.
This is a review of that music and the woman who made it. Kate Bush grew up in a quiet part of Kent just outside London in the heart of provincial England. From a very young age she had become captivated by modern music, and while growing up in the progressive 1960s and early 70s, the young Kate began to absorb an eclectic mix of traditions and styles.
In terms of influences you can hear in her work, I've got to say that there's not very much that strikes me. She seems to me one of those rare people who is very much an original. What she'll declare as influences is people like Elton John. And, well, he's a singer-songwriter who plays piano, so you can see that as a starting point.
She was 13 years old when Elton John was at his peak of pop success, and of course that is exactly the moment to be influenced. And one would suspect that Kate was influenced by Elton.
Blue jean baby, L.A. lady, seamstress for the band, pretty eye, pirate smile, you marry a music man.
There is an influence of 70s songwriters like Elton John, who used the piano, or Carole King. But again, there's huge influences of folk music, of English music hall. Kate's truly a one-off. She doesn't really slot into any category, and I think that's what makes her so incredibly special.
I mean, in terms of British female pop singers, you know, I mean, we're talking Dusty Springfield, Sandy Shaw, Lulu. And then you arrive at Kate Bush. So there is no precedent, really. She absolutely was unique. I mean, she really was a one-off. There had never been anybody like her before.
From a remarkably young age, she had begun to compose her own material on the family's upright piano. While still in her early teens, she unofficially auditioned for family friend and Pink Floyd guitarist Dave Gilmour. It would be this encounter that would drastically change her life and set her on the road to pop success.
I was about 15, 16, and we thought it would be really interesting to see if I could get some of my songs published. A friend of the family knew Dave Gilmour, who at that time was looking for talent to either be involved with or produce or encourage. And he came down to hear some of my songs as part of the scouting process. And I think he was intrigued enough to feel that it was worth mastering the demos and presenting them to record companies in that form.
He arranged this really remarkable all-singing, all-dancing demo where Kate went to Abbey Road and Dave hired a 30-piece orchestra. And they made 3 tracks, saxophone song, The Man with the Child in His Eyes, and the other one. Gilmour himself can't remember what the other one was. It didn't go on the record, I suppose, is why that gets lost in the midst of time. Anyway, they were terrific and they impressed the EMI, and that's how the ball started rolling, and EMI signed this development deal with her. They
gave her some money and they gave her a few years just to develop her sound. That would be unheard of today in that way. EMI were prepared to take a chance on an unknown artist and give her time, and a female artist at that, which was very unusual.
Kate used the time EMI had offered her to train and develop as an artist. She left school and concentrated on getting experience playing live, composing new material and attending singing lessons. It was also during this period that she began to train with dancer and mime artist Lindsay Kemp. an experience that would deeply affect the way in which she presented her own work.
I knew that I wanted to do music, but I also knew that there was something missing from the expression. And I was very lucky just to see an ad in a paper. I went to see a show, and it was Lindsay Kemp. And really, I'd never seen anything like it before. And what he was doing was he was using movement without any sound at all, something I'd never experienced. And he was expressing so much, probably more than most people would express with their mouths. And it suddenly dawned on me that there was a whole new world of expression that I hadn't even realised. I was still at school, and it was a few months after that I decided to leave school and to throw myself into the world of music, and dance seemed to be something that was such a parallel to it that I felt it was good for me, especially in terms of being a performer, something that I knew nothing about.
It's all part of her expressing the music and she does dance well. She's using her body like an instrument in the way that she uses her voice like an instrument.
Midway through 1977, it was decided that Kate was finally ready to record her debut album. Sessions for what would become The Kick Inside started at Abbey Road Studios at the end of the summer.
We knew nothing about Kate Bush at all, and we just assumed that this was another young girl, pop singer, etc. And we turned up on the session, and there she was. I think she was 19, and we started working, and within, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, we realised that we were not working with your average pop singer. We were working with a very talented young lady, both in terms of composing and in lyric writing. When all of us came out of that first session, we all went to the canteen or the bar or whatever it was. And we thought, well, you know, either she's going to absolutely bomb or she's going to start a complete revolution. You know, and of course, none of us knew which.
EMI similarly did not know quite what to expect from the 19-year-old's first record. They decided to release one of her most conventional tracks, The Man with the Child in His Eyes. However, Kate had different ideas and insisted that her first single should be the haunting Wuthering Heights, a song based on Emily Bronte's classic 19th century novel of the same name.
Someone out there in the storm. It's a woman. I heard her calling. She said her name. Kathy, that was it. Kathy? Oh, I must have been dreaming. Forgive me, Mr. Heathcliff.
Get out of this room.
Get out! Get out, I tell you! Kathy! Come in!
And I'm sure one of the reasons it stuck so heavily in my mind was because of the spirit of Kathy. And as a child, I was called Kathy. It later changed to Kate. It was just a matter of exaggerating all my bad areas because she's a really vile person. She's just so headstrong and passionate and crazy, you know. And it was fun to do, and it took a night and a half.
She was singing as a ghost, a witch, her imagination of that. Kathy not coming back to life, but coming back to haunt Heathcliff and the world at large out on the wily, windy moor.
It was about Kathy haunting her lover Heathcliff and wailing and whining over the moors. Really atmospheric.
Haunt me then. Haunt your murderer. I know that ghosts have wandered on the earth. Be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this dark alone, for I cannot find you. I cannot live without my life.
It wouldn't have occurred to anyone
I cannot die.
to use as the subject of a lyric a novel that had been written hundreds of years previous. But she did so in a way which struck home emotionally. It really was at the deepest primal need, and it was a sensational bit of songwriting.
Kate won her battle with EMI and convinced them to release Wuthering Heights as her first single. And so, on the 17th of February 1978, Kate Bush was finally released on the British public.
You had a temper like my jealousy, too hard, too greedy.
I first heard Kate when I was at Radio 1 in my program studio, preparing to go on. Kid Jensen was in the next studio, on air, and he played this new single. It was called Wuthering Heights. And at one point, I thought to myself, oh my God, the motor has died, meaning in the turntable, because that was the point where her voice went low and slow. I had no idea that someone would deliberately do that in the middle of a pop record. So I was really intrigued by this. It would have been a disaster if the turntable on Radio 1 had gone dead. And of course, it was genius. It was indescribable brilliance, inconceivable brilliance. She was 19 years old. It was a great classic single. Perfect, perfecto. And of course, the first British #1 written by a British woman.
It was the combination of the piano and Kate's voice just racing up and down the octaves. It was a very startling sound. It was totally new. We hadn't heard anything like it before.
The guitar solo on the fade, which is a long guitar solo, it's almost a minute. But what is so wonderful about it is that it is at times a vamp on the melody, almost jazz-like, but then at times it is the melody. It's Kate as a guitar string. And at the exact fade out, it's exactly the same notes as Kate singing. So there is almost a loop through the whole 4.5 minutes of this record. Even though she's gone, she's still there echoing in your mind, which is perfect for the haunting effect of the record.
I mean, it is a landmark in British pop music. The voice is quite remarkable. I mean, the voice just takes you places no other voice went.
Kate really uses her voice in a very creative way, a very theatrical way. And I think it's something that she's modified over the years. That the earlier albums, sometimes it felt as if she was going up and down the octaves and using strange sounds for the sake of it, almost slightly self-conscious. Whereas with later albums, it's calmer and she just sings and there's an intense beauty to her voice and she just lets the melody sing out, really. But on some of the early records, like Wuthering Heights, she uses her voice to real dramatic effect, going really high and then just swooping down low.
The staggering success of Wuthering Heights made Kate an instant celebrity. However, people were already beginning to question whether, like Emily Bronte, Bush would only be capable of one truly great work.
Before the album came out, a lot of people thought, well, she's never going to be able to do anything like this again. I mean, this is such a fluke. Everything about it is a fluke. The voice is a fluke. The subject is a fluke. So she quite wisely didn't duplicate it, and went the other way and brought out one of her piano-based tracks, The Man with the Child in His Eyes.
I hear him before I go to sleep and focus on the day that's been. I realize he's there when I turn the light off and turn over. Nobody knows about my man.
The Man with the a Child in His Eyes, it's quite an interesting song. This was originally the one that got her record deal at EMI. It's a beautiful ballad, it's really melodic, but as always with Kate Bush, it's never straightforward, it's quite ambiguous. The meaning of the lyrics, it could be about a daughter waiting for her father, it could be about a woman waiting for her lover. There's a real ambiguity there, and it's also, it has a real beauty, but it's also a little bit chilling as well, and very dreamlike.
It's just her singing melodically in that kind of contralto, which is her basic voice, and singing very sweetly and roundly, and you hear what a lovely singer she is.
He's here again, the man with a child in his eyes.
It's, to me, the opening to the sensual, sexual Kate Bush. I mean, Wuthering Heights, that's a fantasy around a novel, and where Kate Bush herself stands in that, who would know? Obviously, she enjoyed the whole thing very much, but with this song, she's right in there. And as a teenage girl, as now, I'm sure, she's a very sensual, sexual person, and the two words go together in connection with Kate Bush just all the time. You've got to say both of those things, or know both of those things about her. That's where a lot of her inspiration and her power flows from, is from being a sensual person and enjoying being a sensual person and feeling that that's a force for good in the world. It's as big as that to her. I think she cares about it that much. And of course it's an element of love, but in the way she writes, and in that song it applies too, it's the sensual heart of it.
That side of women's sexuality hadn't really been acknowledged or expressed because the 70s, even though there was a sort of real strong feminist movement, I think that hadn't penetrated into the mainstream, and I think people still thought along tram lines when it came to the sexes and what men were supposed to feel and women were supposed to feel. So Kate sort of really dodged around all that and came out with something that was quite daring.
Kate Bush's debut album, The Kick Inside, was released on the 17th of February 1978. Despite her young age, the record is a remarkably mature and sophisticated piece of work.
I think the best comment I ever read about the first album, The Kick Inside, that somebody described her as a cross between Lindsay DePaul and Angela Carter, the feminist novelist. And I thought that's absolutely brilliant, because that really does sum up the two things that are going on that record. You know, she is this pop princess. She's not quite Lindsay DePaul, but, you know, I mean, you can see where that's coming from. And then a song like The Kick Inside itself, which is, you know, this dark, dark song, effectively this suicide note from a girl who's carrying the child of her own brother. You know, and then there are other songs on the album about period pains and all kinds of subjects that very few people could ever imagine writing about in a pop song. And that's quite a special combination, and I think made it a unique debut album, and also contributed to this thing of really not knowing quite what she was. You know, was she pop? Was she rock? She was Kate Bush.
The astounding success of her first album confirmed Kate's celebrity status, an aspect of her career that she would become increasingly less comfortable with over the years.
You see, famous is one of those words, isn't it? It's so creative, because I think artists shouldn't be made famous. You know, they're just as important as doctors and priests. You know, maybe not as important sometimes. And yet they have this huge aura of almost godlike quality about them, just because their craft makes a lot of money. But at the same time, it is false importance. You know, football stars and theatre stars. It is man-made. It's so the press can feed.
But do you enjoy it? When you go out and people recognise you, and there's, I mean, do you enjoy that?
No, sometimes it's a buzz, being honest, sometimes it really is a buzz, but a lot of the time it embarrasses me, it makes me feel awkward with the people I'm with because they get embarrassed. But it's something I'm learning to accept. They're just saying hello in their own way. I know a lot of people enjoy it, they really like giving autographs and everything, and I think it's very important, if ever anyone asks you for your autograph, you must give it to them. Because, you know, I think of myself when I was a kid and I saw stars and oh God, I really want their autograph. And I'd go up and say, hello, and I'd be so shy, and I'd nearly die and I couldn't even get the words out. So it is a matter of respect to give that to them.
While the man with the child in his eyes was still climbing the charts, Kate made preparations to record her second album, Lionheart. The LP was released on the 13th of November, making 1978 the most productive year of her career.
I spend a lot of my time looking at blue, the color of my room and my moon, blue on the walls, blue out of my mouth, sort of blue between clouds when the sun comes out, sort of blue in those eyes you get hung up about.
The way that I see Lionheart is it was quite simply a continuation of The Kick Inside. I don't think at that stage she was under pressure to duplicate The Kick Inside. I think she just couldn't. I mean, she had a backlog of songs anyway that she'd been writing for years. And I think this was just a continuation of The Kick Inside.
I do feel that the second album suffered just a little because of me not having enough time in between to really write and produce new stuff and really sort out the old stuff.
The rushed release of the record has often been blamed for what some perceive as Kate's weakest album. Despite these criticisms, Lionheart does contain some truly remarkable material. The first single to be released from Lionheart was the extremely theatrical Hammer Horror, which, in contrast to its predecessors, was not such a chart success. However, the second single from the record, Wow, proved to be a far more popular release.
Ooh, yeah, you're amazing. We think you're incredible. You say we're fantastic, but still we don't have the beat. Wow, 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 unbelievable.
Wow, I think it's the sort of ultimate in lovey-dom, really. It's a song about the stage and eulogising the stage and the glory and the loneliness of being an actor. And sort of, in a sense, again, quite typical of Kate Bush, and it's fairly complex because it's talking about the isolation of being a performer at the same time as the wonder of it and the wonder of attracting a crowd.
And so it's this whole feeling of the showbiz world, and maybe it also starts to reflect on what she'd started to experience over the previous years of her kind of apprenticeship and then her entry into the full public eye, about the good and the bad of it. Everyone's tremendous enthusiasm. Oh, this is, as they say now, this is so exciting. Exciting is the word of that now. But she picked up on Wow, and she sort of, she's taken the mickey out of herself as well. She was quite famous at the time and rather mocked for saying wow a lot in a sort of post-hippie way. But there she's using it in the song, and it's in this showbiz way. Oh, we must all enthuse about everything. And oh, and that was rude as well, wasn't it? There's that line about the guy hitting the Vaseline, and in the video, just in case you didn't get the point, she pats her bum at that point. So that's what we're talking about, is this guy is gay. Yes, and she wants us to know that.
He's too busy hitting the Vaseline. Ooh, yeah, you're amazing. We think you are really cool.
I know that everybody at radio level understood what that was about, but hey, so what? They let it, they let it go. In those days, anything went. There was none of the self-awareness that came in the 1990s at radio level. and people liked it. But by that time, the album was out. This was the second single, so it stopped at number 14, I believe. But that didn't mean that people didn't like it more than that. They knew it. But many of them had the album already.
The true theatrical nature of Lionheart would be brought sharply into focus when, in April 1979, Kate embarked upon her one and only tour. The show's ambitious production design, costumes and set pieces arguably became the template for the way in which all modern pop concerts are staged.
Kate Bush's Tour of Life is what it's called in '79. I feel honoured that I actually went to see it. Yeah, it was a huge spectacle with a lot of different stages, a whole team of dancers, myriads of costume changes, musical theatre, but really high art musical theatre. One that really left you quite gobsmacked. And also she used the mic. I think she was one of the first.
The neck harness, which she was one of the pioneers of, on a radio mic set on a neck harness. People had to deal with her dancing all over this shop very energetically, with a troupe with her as well as the band.
It was much more than just a pop recital. And people just couldn't believe it, because she was doing stuff that it hadn't occurred to anybody to do. It was a great show, and obviously it's to everyone's regret that she didn't do more live work later.
I mean, there was real depth to the show that she created, and sadly, it took so much out of her. That was it, and those who saw it can count themselves very lucky indeed.
What was so surprising was that she didn't want to go back on stage after that because she seemed so at ease with it. She didn't come across as someone who was stressed with it, who had tremendous stage fright or nerves. Obviously that went on behind the scenes, but there was a real fluidity to the show.
It was a lot of time and effort, a very big commitment, and it's getting to the point where nearly all my projects are very big commitments, and I think I haven't really wanted to do it since. I had to wait until the end of the last album to have enough new material to do a show. But I just don't think I feel prepared for that commitment.
She's managed to resist it for a quarter of a century, so one suspects she'll resist it for the rest of her life too, unfortunately. That would be great to her, you know. It'd be great if she just went out with a piano and a light bulb, and we'd all be happy about that, but I dare say she won't.
After the completion of the tour, Kate returned to Abbey Road to record her third studio album. The first single to be released from the new record was Breathing, a song that showed a marked change in the direction of her writing.
Sometime around 1979-80, probably after the tour, she does start looking outwards, and era of CND, with the American bases at Greenham Common and so on and so forth. She addressed this in an absolutely unique way in the Breathing, where, I mean, you know, a lot of people were probably writing songs about nuclear destruction at that time, but who else would have seen it through the eyes of an unborn child?
It's a very physical song. You get the sense of laboured breathing in and out, the life force gradually leaving this baby's body. And you realise after a while she's singing about a child in the womb who's being poisoned by plutonium, who can't breathe. It's really quite a shocking song. It has a beautiful melody, but it's really quite shocking underneath. and then towards the end it drifts in and out as the life expires.
Just that repeated breathing in, out, you really feel it. It's a very physical, I suppose you'd say visceral feeling you get off that song. It was very tough, very rough. The video only emphasised it.
The problem with breathing, if there is to be said to be a problem, is that it isn't hooky. That's all. Also, the last minute is talking. That is not usually a recipe for a hit. And it's 5.5 minutes. So really, she's just confounding everyone, probably especially her record company, and not putting out a nice hit tune.
Following Breathing, EMI decided to take the unusual step of releasing a second single prior to the release of the album. It was to be the far more commercial Babushka.
Kate Bush came back with Babushka after Breathing. Maybe people at EMI were getting a little bit worried at that point, because Babushka's quite reassuring in its straightforward pop nature. It's almost a combination between a Russian lullaby and Broadway musical. It's got a real swing to it.
But how she was before the tears, and how she was before the years flew by, and how she was when she was beautiful. She sang the letter on, babushka, 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 yeah, yeah. On, babushka, 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 yeah, yeah.
I mean, the conceit is simple enough of this woman testing her man's fidelity. But what the song is actually about is much deeper than that, of course, because you know, the woman has grown, I don't know, old and wrinkled or whatever, but she still feels the same young girl inside. And, you know, can the man still recognise what it was that he fell in love with in this girl all these years earlier?
And with Babushka, you reach the conclusion that the wife, dressed up as the mystery woman, so this is sort of a very Arabian Nights sort of feel to it. She comes and meets her husband. She's in disguise, and the husband's very excited about her, though he wasn't excited about her as the wife. And so it ends in that moment of the meeting. And so there is actually, despite it's a humorous, farcical tale, there is also a certain poignancy about it.
Babushka, 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 yeah, yeah. Babushka, 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 yeah, yeah.
Somehow the word babushka is very appetizing for radio. You know, in the late 50s, doo-wop was a big deal, and nonsense syllables, sha-na-na, were really popular. Well, babushka, although it is a word in Russian, it sounds like nonsense syllables as well, and they're nonsense syllables that go together very well. And I think this unknowingly appealed to the child in a lot of people.
Never Forever was finally released on the 11th of September 1980 and quickly rose to the top of the album charts, making it the first album by a British female artist to reach #1. To promote the album, EMI decided to release a third single from the record, Army Dreamers.
A bunch of purple flowers to decorate to Mammy's hero.
That sleeve photo is fantastic. It shows her, again, using her body as a canvas to project several different kinds of visual image. Not an image that she's going to stay with, but for the song, this is the right look. And this song is so touching. It's a direct message about how, if you have war, you're going to have young men who dream of being soldiers, go off and become soldiers, and don't come back. And the life is lost. It doesn't happen.
Army dreams, army dreams, army dreamers.
For me, that's the closest that I've got to a little bit of film. And it was very pleasing for me to watch the ideas I'd thought of actually working beautifully, watching it on the screen. It really was a treat, that one. I think that's the first time ever with anything I've done I can actually sit back and say, I like that. That's the only thing. Everything else I can sit there and go, oh, look at that, that's out of place.
At the end of the year, Kate released the Christmas single December Will Be Magic Again, and then retreated from the public eye. She began work on what would become The Dreaming, her first record entirely produced by herself. The production would be deeply affected by a profound change in popular music. The instruments on which musicians composed their material began to change as new technology made new sounds suddenly easily accessible.
The 80s was really a musical revolution in terms of the synthesizer, and that completely altered the texture of pop music. And also it was a key sound in the sort of post-punk bands like Ultravox, Heaven 17, ABC as well. There was a whole new pop sound that was coming through, and it was post-punk. And I think Kate picked up on all these influences when she did The Dreaming.
And you got these things called fairlights, which you could do astonishing things with, build up everything into this synthesizer and then mess about with it, push things around in all sorts of new ways, which are, of course, completely accepted nowadays. But it was the favourite toy of the time, very expensive, but it was a great toy, things like fairlights. Kate was one of the early purchasers and certainly used it to the full.
We were working on the third album, and there was a guy basically exhibiting the Fairlight, bringing it round to people to show them, and he brought it in to the studio because they thought I'd be interested, and I was very.
So did you start tinkling around on it? And
Well, as soon as it was there, it was something I think I'd been looking for a long time. The ability to be able to sample any sound that you want and then play that is something that songwriters dream of, really. And it went straight on to nearly every track on the album.
But the other strange thing about Kate's actual influences and reactions at the time was, which partly relates to electronics, is that she got influenced by Peter Gabriel's method of songwriting at that time. And Peter Gabriel, in his third or fourth album, he had started to move into writing to a rhythm track. He was not starting with a lyric, he wasn't starting with a melody, he was starting with a rhythm track, a beatbox thing. So here we are, this is electronic beats. Kate saw Peter doing that, and at least to an appreciable degree, she adopted that.
As Kate continued to work on The Dreaming, which was now entering its second year of production, EMI made the strange decision to release a single from the album a full year prior to the album's release. That single was Sat in Your Lap.
I see the people working and see it working for them, and so I want to join in, but then I find it hard. So say that knowledge is something sat in your lap. So say that knowledge is something that you never have.
EMI You Sat in Your Lap as a preview to the album, except a year before, so that's not ever such a good move as far as selling an album goes. But again, it's one of her real one-off strange singles, isn't it? It's, I think it's absolutely stunning, that song. It's one of my all-time favourites of hers. But as 3 minutes on the radio, or 4 minutes perhaps, it's enormously powerful. Chaotic.
It's one of those records that is full of disruptive rhythms. Her voice is pretty wild. It's all over the place. It's really insistent. It's a very confrontational record. But I think people responded to that. There was a real passion in it that people responded to. But it's interesting because it's almost Frank Zappa-ish in its sense of parody, in the way she plays with different time signatures.
After the slow and complicated production of The Dreaming, the record was finally ready for release in the September of 1982. At the point of its release, the record did not receive universal acclaim, and to this day remains an album that divides its listeners.
Kate has always said, EMI saw it as my mad record. They saw it as a commercial suicide note, and in a sense, because that was the feeling in the record company, you know how these things have their effects, it was sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm sure they put some work into it, but they weren't working with confidence, to say the least. And so that will have played into it being a commercial failure.
I don't feel it went away from the mainstream. I mean, whenever you make an album, you just do it and you hope all the songs are good and that you're trying to express what you want at that time. And I feel that I've done that, certainly with the last 3 albums.
But I have to say, with the benefit of just, the 23 years of hindsight, that I think bad reviews were a terrible mistake. That is a really powerful album. Some say it's her best, and I think that's a good argument. I might think it's her best on reflection. Some of those tracks are just knockout. The title track, what a piece of work that is. The Dreaming is taken from the dream time, the Aborigines' dream time, their walkabout time, their spiritual wandering that they do, as we've been advised in no end of documentaries. And so she took that idea and then looked at the politics of it, how the Aborigines have been dispossessed of their land when we colonised Australia. She does that, amazingly enough, in a rather odd comic setting, which to my mind doesn't devalue the subject matter or the argument. She brings in Rolf Harris to play Didgeridoo.
Sorry, there's one very famous Australian featured on this album who you're not used to finding on rock records. Rolf Harris.
Yes.
This is correct, is it? He plays the didgeridoo on that track.
Yes, he does. I think it's interesting how people sort of go, Rolf Harris.
Well, it's not the sort of person used to seeing in credits,
No,
along with...
He's not often mentioned on this programme.
No.
But he is a very good didgeridoo player, which is why we used him.
Well, you go for the best,
yeah.
Now, I also heard that on that track you employed, I think, Percy Edwards to supply the kind of synthesised jungle backing.
This is the bird impression.
The bird impressions and all the animals.
Yes. Yes. Well, I knew that in the choruses we wanted to create a feeling of the landscape, and obviously there are a lot of Australian animals, and the sounds are very reminiscent of the environment. And of course Percy could come along and give us a selection of at least 10 different Australian animals.
With both the album and single receiving critical flack, Kate retreated from the public gaze once more. She would remain silent for 3 years, working on what has become widely seen as her masterpiece. During this time, she designed and built her own studio, allowing her more flexibility in terms of her recordings.
You went away on your own terms to make this LP, didn't you?
Yes, I wanted to make sure that we got our own studio together. That was the next move, really. I spent a lot of time on the last album, moving from studio to studio. And now we've got our own place and everything is brilliant. It makes such a difference.
Is it difficult choosing the right sort of gear to put in there, the right people to work with in that studio, and the location, of course?
I think it's really good because you can get everything you want in one studio, which isn't always easy in a London studio.
What were you looking for? What makes your studio special for you?
Well, it's got all the environmental things that we want, the right kind of sounding rooms, and we've got all the outboard equipment and the right kind of speakers and everything. It's what we want, which is why we did it.
Kate would finally return in the summer of 1985 and present arguably the most complete and powerful work of her entire career. This new period opened up the release of Running Up That Hill in August 1985. It quickly rose to number 3 in the charts, making it her most successful single since Wuthering Heights.
Rather like Wuthering Heights, EMI did not want this song as a single. She fought them for it, and again she won, with a slight compromise that they changed the title because it was originally called Deal With God.
Running Up That Hill, of course, officially, the title is Running Up That Hill, brackets, Deal With God. And that's really important. The brackets is Kate Bush stamping her foot and protesting, because that Deal With God is her title for that song. She insists, she still calls that song Deal With God. That was one she lost in her endless disputations with EMI, friendly disputations, creative disputations. That one she lost, though.
Running Up That Hill is a great record, period. And it is her biggest single in Britain since Wuthering Heights, gets number 3, and it is her first top 30 single in America. It's very accessible. And here, the synthesizer is used in a very atmospheric way. She manages to really create an atmosphere of longing and quest.
This astonishing thing is happening, a deal with God. To swap identity with someone. Again, one of these, you know, just toss it away sort of little ideas for a pop song. So you're going to swap identity with someone so that you can see the world from their point of view. And how would that work out? You know, it may be about a love affair. If you could go into your lover's shoes and look at you as they see you, what would be going? You know, it's just a fantastic piece of imagination translated into a lyric that really nails it, with a great hook line, of course, and a brilliantly conceived piece of music to bring out the sort of the passion and the madness and the urgency of this idea.
Perfect blending of the synthesizer and the drum machine, and I guess it achieves what she hadn't done on the previous record, and indeed synth pop was struggling to do, which was to marry genuine emotion and a soulfulness, if you like, with the technology. That was what was lacking perhaps on the previous record, and here the two come together. And indeed they do on the whole album.
The album, The Hounds of Love, entered the charts at #1 and has since become regarded as one of the seminal albums of the 1980s.
I think we felt that Kate was going along a certain trajectory that was whimsy, a little bit, that she'd lost her way a bit, really, and that wasn't really relevant. And then she came out with Hounds of Love, which was full of so many different influences, really picking up on emerging dance music, on world music, which was huge at that point. And the lyrics and the music worked together in a way. It was a real peak in her career. It was almost like the summation of everything that she'd done up to that point.
Hounds of Love is undoubtedly the masterpiece. I mean, one of the extraordinary things about that record is its self-confidence, because after The Dreaming, which didn't sell and wasn't regarded as a success and had been the first album that she'd produced totally herself, you know, she could have taken a real knock from that. But it doesn't seem to have had that effect at all.
The second side of the record contains a series of songs known collectively as the Ninth Wave.
Pink Floyd often did this on their early records, which is that you put a bunch of songs on one side, as in vinyl, and you put a concept on the other side. Well, wisely, I would imagine, Kate didn't just do one side as a continuous track, which was the old Pink Floyd way, but she did a bunch of songs that were themed to some degree, and they are themed on what it's like to be dead. At least I think that's a good part of it.
Clearly there's this cycle of life and rebirth going on there, inspired by this line from Tennyson. And it sounds absolutely extraordinary as well. And again, it's the attention to every last little sound. I mean, both in terms of the voice, in which she uses every sort of vocal trick in the book to create every sort of nuance of emotion. But then in the actual sounds themselves, I mean, there's this wonderful story, for example, about the waves that they recorded, which occur between the first and second track in the cycle. And she insisted were redone because they weren't the right kind of waves. You know, so that infinitesimal attention to duty. Cloudbusting, I mean, another extraordinary single that existed in its own little time and space.
Based on a book that I found about 10 years ago. It's called A Book of Dreams, written by Peter Reich, and it's about the relationship between himself as a child and his father, and what a special relationship it was. There's an incredible sense of innocence throughout the book because it's being written from a child's point of view, and you get a great sense of the magic of their relationship. His father was a very greatly respected psychoanalyst and had a great deal of theories on life energy, and also had a machine that could make it rain called a cloudbuster, and together they would go out and go cloudbusting. The song is really about the magic of that relationship, the adult looking back at what a good time they had. Unfortunately, the build-up in the book is where the father is arrested because his beliefs are considered somewhat outrageous. And from that point onwards, it's very difficult for the child to cope without his father.
But Cloudbusting is the best video from the point of view of art. And it's really heart-wrenching when she's separated from Donald Sutherland, her dad. She can act.
And the song is saying that now that his father's gone, instead of the moments when it rains being sad for him, they're a very happy thing. It makes him think of his father, and in a way the rain is the presence of his father with him.
With the title track from the record also performing well in the charts, Hounds of Love became Kate's most successful album to date. Suspecting that Kate would retreat from the world once more, EMI decided to capitalise on the success of Hounds of Love by releasing The Whole Story, a compilation album of her work up until that point. However, after the release, Kate again retired from public life and slowly began the lengthy process of composing her next record.
Well, I first heard the Trio Bulgarka when I'd finished the last album, and I was devastated. I think everyone that hears it for the first time is. It's incredibly powerful music, and I listened to it for a long time and started thinking how nice it would be if I could somehow work with you.
While composing her new album, Kate had become deeply influenced by world music. This record contains many unusual instruments and influences, ranging from Irish folk to the Bulgarian Trio Bulgarka, who are also featured on the record.
The Trio Bulgarka, these lovely, really wizened old women from Bulgaria, with their amazing shimmering voices, and she's singing, and she has a shimmering quality to her voice as well. I think she chose her world music, if you like, very well and very carefully. At that point, world music as an influence was very popular. We had Peter Gabriel doing it, we had Paul Simon doing it with Gracelands and going out to South Africa. A lot of artists were incorporating it into their sound, and some more successfully than others. And I think Kate did it in a way that was quite subtle.
Kate Bush's sixth studio album, The Sensual World, was released in October 1989. The record seems to represent a change in its author.
I think in a way this was her new maturity as an artist. I think she felt, OK, I've arrived now. She'd obviously established herself with the record company to the extent that, in a way, she was a free agent. OK, I'm going to take time now.
The Sensual World is a mature album. It's Kate's first post-30 album. I mean, coming after the masterpiece of Hounds of Love was perhaps never going to get the acclaim that it perhaps deserved.
The singles from this are quite moving. They're not big hits, but they are hits. A Woman's Work is from this record, and is really moving. But people could really relate to that.
I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I should be crying, but I just can't let it show. I should be hoping, but I can't stop thinking. All the things I should have said that I never said. All the things we should have done that we never did. All the things I should have given that I didn't. Oh, darling, make it good.
The most successful single from the record was the title track itself, released in September 1989.
The sensual world, that is what she lives in. That's the heart of her life, is that sensual world. Much as she's a very thoughtful person, and much as she reads the papers and knows what's going on in the world, for sure, and uses all that information in her songs, nonetheless, the sensual world is where it's at, and it comes from James Joyce, from Ulysses, and the final passage, I believe, not being a person who's ever been able to get through Ulysses, but I understand that what she wrote is derived from the final passage of Ulysses, a long internal monologue by the character Molly Bloom, which Kate actually wanted to set to music, but James Joyce's estate refused her permission to do that, so she had to write her own version of it, which I believe she does quite wonderfully. And she has, it's a beautifully expressed, highly sensual lyric, but with her singing and the music exactly fitting what she's on about as well.
He said I was a flower of the mountains, but now I've powers of a woman's body.
In a strange way, you'd say that Kate Bush, in her view of sensuality, sexuality, kind of always transcends lust because she thinks it's wonderful and good and great, and it's about communing with the other person and having a wonderful time. So the crudity that lust implies really isn't a part of Kate Bush's sensual world.
After the release of The Sensual World, the next anyone was to hear from Kate Bush was in the September of 1993, when she released Rubber Band Girl from her up-and-coming album The Red Shoes.
Rubber Band Girl. In a way, it takes me back to Babushka and some of those more rollicking pop tracks. It's lovely. It just sort of came out just at that point where she was a serious artist, and we've got this quite light pop song, which works really well. It swings.
She seems to want to create, possibly rather than recreate, the possibility of her being a pop singer. And it does have that feel to it. It's like a nice, classic, not exactly could have come out of the 50s, but in a certain way you feel, well, that could almost be a 50s pop song with a bit of an edge.
The Red Shoes followed in the November and was marked by the guest appearances of several celebrity collaborators.
The Red Shoes itself is a strange album because on one level it's her most conventional sounding record in many ways. Partly because you've got all these celebrity guests on it, which is something she hadn't really done before. You know, from Eric Clapton to Prince, Lenny Henry.
What's the point of having Lenny Henry unless people know it's Lenny Henry? One problem of having a lot of famous guest stars is that you dilute your own vision. It's really hard to have famous people on without drawing attention to the fact that it's them. And one of the most wonderful things about Kate Bush is that her records are Kate Bush records. It's almost as if there's a Kate Bush universe in which none of us visit. We don't have the passport to get into the Kate Bush universe. And yet on this album, a lot of people have the passport to get into the Kate Bush universe.
There's a sadness about it which crops up from time to time. There's a line repeated about life being pain. That crops up in two songs, obviously consciously. And The truth is her mother had died a short while before this album was made, or completed at least, and you just think, well, that's in there. She said she didn't want to deal with it. She couldn't deal with it head on, so to speak, at the time.
A lot of different juxtapositions and even contradictions going on the record, and again, it probably didn't get the attention it deserved at the time. I think probably of all of Kate Bush's records, it's the one that's ripe for revisiting and reassessing. I think it's probably a lot better record than it was given credit for at the time.
The Red Shoes peaked at number 21 in the charts. It was, however, not to be the final chapter in the album's story.
Where am I? Who are you? I'm not meant to be here. I don't understand how this has happened.
What the hell is going on? Look, who are you?
Oh, please. You must help me.
Shortly after its release, a short film based on the record appeared in limited cinemas across the UK. The film was directed by and stars Kate Bush alongside Miranda Richardson. However, it was neither an artistic nor commercial success.
My way out, oh please! You must help me!
Help you? How can I help you?
I can't use my hands. I can't use my hands. I have to get back.
I mean, it was such a consciously arty creation. I really did detest it at the time, I know. And I sort of regret my detestation, because you don't want to detest something that Kate Bush does. She's a great artist and quite clearly a lovely person. But nonetheless, she seemed to, in the movie, in complete contrast to the album, she seemed to have got herself lost in artiness.
I know she was upset by the relative failure of the Red Shoes short film, which was a very awkward length, halfway between a genuine short and a full-length film. The fact is that cinemas don't schedule 45-minute movies anymore. And that put a bit of a dent in her confidence, because she had started out with incredible acclaim from her videos from the first one, which was Wuthering Heights. And when you suddenly run across a situation that's less than perfect in terms of reception, you do have self-doubts.
Many people believed that The Red Shoes was the end of the story for Kate Bush as a recording artist, as she remained silent, raising a family for the next 13 years. However, in December 2004, an understated message was sent to the Kate Bush fan club, announcing that the long-awaited 8th album would be released the following year. The announcement suddenly blasted Kate back into the public consciousness, and once again she began to appear in the national press. The excitement finally peaked on the release of King of the Mountain in October 2005.
King of the Mountain was, I think, a really good comeback, which is what it was after all these years, of course, after 13 years.
King of the Mountain is an interesting song, again, because in a way she's come full circle, because she's bringing up the haunting theme that she established with Wuthering Heights, and you feel the ghost of Elvis permeating this song, to the extent that there's an inflection in her voice, a sort of Elvis inflection in her voice, and she's wondering about the king, and quite just musing on why would someone who's got so much money fill his house with priceless junk.
Here she is reflecting on Elvis and what the greatest of them all did with his actual life outside of being the king, the millionaire who wasted his millions on junk, as she says. Very judgmental, Kate, rather unusual that.
The album was released under the name Ariel on Monday the 7th of November and quickly made its way to number 3 in the charts.
What a brilliant move, career move it turned out to be, waiting 13 years to make a record, because I can't ever remember any record that there has been that kind of anticipation and build-up towards. I mean, weeks before anybody had heard a single note, people were writing 1,000-word articles in broadsheet newspapers about what it might sound like. So the anticipation was enormous. Did it live up to it? I think it pretty much did.
I think Ariel is a wonderful record. It's one of Kate's best, absolute best. I love that it's a double album. I love that she takes her time and it reflects 13 years. Yeah, I feel it's a real woman's record in that it really reflects what she's been going through, having a small child and being at home all day, and that sense of isolation and dislocation. It's there in songs like Mrs. Bartolozzi, which is so daring to sing a song about a washing machine and just have a chorus that is washing machine, washing machine. But for me, it really encapsulates what it feels like to be at home.
The fact that motherhood has had such a profound impact on her. You know, the previous record had been about loss. This record is about redemption, really, and she's found it through motherhood. And although there are some profound themes on the record, you know, after the red shoes, this is Kate Bush finding her sunny uplands, and nobody is going to begrudge her that.
Kate Bush's comeback shocked many critics, only serving to further demonstrate the unpredictable genius of this unique recording artist. Over the last 3 decades, she has been one of the most innovative and enduring voices in modern music, ensuring her place as a true pop icon.
Her music is so intensely private, and I think that is really, really quite unique. I mean, you sort of come away from a Kate album, and you know, in some ways you're sort of blushing, you know, because she's revealed a little bit of her soul to you.
Just stepping outside every cliche, every fixed parameter of thinking and singing and writing and working.
She's just a totally unique artist, both in her songwriting and in the way she's operated within the pop world.